Let's now take a look at the projects that we're going to be building in this section of the tutorial, starting with our jukebox. You can pick up any jukebox graphic, or you can make your own, and go ahead and add the buttons to the graphic as well as the volume control. You'll need a mute, low, medium, and high. And then let's go ahead and control test the movie, and you'll see there's our jukebox, and I can pick a song from the selection there, and then there's the music. I can turn down the music, medium or high. I can also mute the music and then choose another song and put it on high. And so you can see I have a selection of music here. You can create as many buttons as you want. You can have another little addition here that will bring up maybe 4 additional songs. So that's the jukebox project. If we look quickly at the script, we can see the kinds of methods we'll be using in classes. So here is my sound objects that I'm creating. In this case, I'm creating 4 sound objects, setting up the URL request for each of those objects, song 1, 2, 4, and 5. I'm loading each of the songs, and then I have here a typical function that we've used and seen previously where I'm detecting which button has been pressed, button 1, button 2, button 3, or button 4, running a function then that will go ahead and play that sound object. There's some parameters there for when in the song I'll start to play and how many times I'll loop it. And then down here are my event listeners. I have event listeners both for the song buttons as well as the volume buttons. If we look very quickly at the volume control, that starts right below here, the functions to run when the song buttons are pressed. There is my function for the volume mute. Sound mixer is the object or the class that we're going to be using. Sound transform is a subclass of that class, and then I'm setting up the sound transform value to 0. That's mute. That's going to be a value between 1 and 0, or actually I should say between 0 and 1. The low volume is going to be set to 0.15, medium is 0.5, and then the last one, volume high, is we're setting our sound transform value to 0.9. That could go all the way to 1 if I want to make it louder. So there is a preview of the scripting that we'll be working with for our jukebox. A little bit more complex will be our volume slider. Demonstrate this real quickly. Play button. The slider, notice, is working. All the way to the left is mute. All the way to the right is full volume. I have a pause button that will play this back from where I paused it when I click on the play button, as well as a stop button. The difference is now this will start from the very beginning. Notice that that's playing right from the same spot. Versus the pause, which will start that up right in the same place. Take a quick look at the various classes, properties, and scripts we'll be using. Starting off with our loading our sound file, creating a sound channel, a little bit different than the previous jukebox script. And then we're going to set a Boolean to false when the music is playing. This is for the pause and the stop buttons. There's our pause position to start with is 0. We're declaring that variable. Go ahead and play the button event listener for the play button. And then here is the play function. If the music is not playing, then make it start right here. Notice that there is my play method for the My Sound channel that I created up above. Then I'm going to go ahead and set up the pause button event listener. Probably the most complicated part of this script is the pause button, checking to make sure where you were when you pressed the pause button. And that's what this script does right here. Saves the current time and stops the playing when the pause button is pressed. We're going to use the position property of your sound channel. Then here we have the stop button event listener. That one's much more straightforward. Just stop the playback. Here is the stop play right here. sound channel null. If there's nothing playing in the sound channel, then stop it. Here is the rectangle for the groove of our slider. Notice that it's 100 pixels wide. That's important. I've seen a lot of these scripts where you can change the position, vertical or horizontal, and the size in pixels of the slider, but not this one. Then we have the event listener to trigger the start dragging function. In other words, when you start dragging the slider, set up the limits of the slider so it doesn't extend above or below the groove or too far left or too far right. Notice that again when I test the movie, this slider stays on that groove, making it appear more realistic. It'd be very sloppy if this moved up and down or went beyond the edge. Then we have our, what I think is the key element of this script right here, is setting up the event listener to change the volume, not just keep the slider on the groove. Right here, adjust volume is the name of the function we're going to run when that event has been satisfied. Enter frame. In other words, as soon as I open up this Shockwave file, run this function, adjust volume, I'm creating a variable to calculate the volume from the slider position. When the slider is all the way to the left, the volume is 0. When the slider is all the way to the right, the volume is going to be set to 1. There's my sound transform class, and there's the my volume property. Again, that's going to be a value between 0 and 1. But rather than setting that like I did in the jukebox, here I'm basing that on the position of the slider relative to the groove. So this is another key line right here. I'm taking my volume underscore MC, my slider MC, checking the X property, which is the position, dividing it by 100. Again, that's relative to the slider. So when it's all the way over to the left, 100 divided by 100 equals 1, and you're going to set a my volume value of 1, and that'll be maximum volume. Then down here I have the stop dragging function. In other words, when you stop dragging on the slider, dragging equals false. Go ahead and set the stop drag property here of the my slider movie clip. In other words, when it stops dragging, no longer move that slider. So there you have a very brief and quick overview of some of the scripts that we'll be working with. Let's now move on to the next movie so I can start giving you the various theory and review the various classes and properties that you'll need to learn so that this script and the previous one for the jukebox makes more sense. Starting with the next movie, where I review the various sound classes that we'll be working with, followed by scripts for loading sounds, playing back sounds, pausing and resuming sounds, and monitoring sounds.